What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to upgrade the Schwinn Axum Comp X that I've got over in the stand over here. This is the Mudmobile with the Tongsheng TSDZ8 mid-drive motor on it. So this is the Mudmobile. You can see there's still mud on the tires from the last time I took her through the mud. And we're going to put a new fork on this. And I got a different front wheel with a Thru-Axle hub on it. And I hope it has more spokes than displayed on the box. But yeah, so we've got a new fork, a new wheel. Gonna put a different headset in this thing. And we're gonna upgrade the Schwinn Axum Comp X with the Marzocchi Bomber fork, new front wheel, and the new headset. So let's go here. Let's take a look at everything. For the headset, I got a Bucklos bicycle headset. And so on this bike, I guess it's like a tapered head tube, and it's 44 millimeters and then 56 millimeters, and I think it's like 0 stack or whatever. So it's a tapered head tube, and we've got the tapered fork. I'm gonna get this old wheel out of the front. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna disconnect my brakes from this janky fork. So now that we've got the caliper out of the way, I'm going to get this other brake mount loosening off here, the adapter. Alright, so I got the brake disconnected from the fork. So now I'm going to come in here with a 5mm hex wrench. And we're going to start loosening things up here. Well, we're going to need a 4mm and a 5mm. So I'm going to loosen off the stem bolts. Let's get our bars off of here, and I'm going to start getting this stuff off of here. So I'm going to hold up on the fork. It's wanting to fall out, so I'm holding the fork up, grabbing the bars, and then so I'm going to lower the fork out of here. Probably lose this, grab onto this thing right here, this headset pieces that are coming off the top. Okay, so fork's coming out. There it is, piece of garbage. What the heck? What was going on in my fork? There's like a metal shaving in there. Oh my god. What is going on in there? Alright guys, so we have to get the old headset out of here. And so there's like a, there's like a cup on the top, and then there's one on the bottom. And usually I just get a big flathead and knock it out with a mallet. So let's see if we can do that. Here we go. Let's see if we can't knock this fucker out of there. Alright, so we need to get the new headset in here, and I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease in here just to help us slide a new headset in a little bit. Just a little something in there to lube it up. I did manage to scratch it in there a little bit with the screwdriver, so I don't know, maybe get the proper tool for removing those things if you have a nice bike, but I have a Walmart bike. Here's my headset. Alright, so let's open this thing up. We gotta get the headset in there. So it comes like this. It looks like it's got a star nut removal tool, top cap. So they kind of give you everything that you need for the headset, and they kind of give you the star nut for upgrading your fork as well. Alright, so we're going to start pushing this thing in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get something flat here, and I'm going to be pushing it up on it. Let's see here, can I hold this like this and then kind of... There we go. So we should have that lower part of the headset going in there. All right, so we got the top part of the headset top race going in there. Alright guys, it's time to unbox the Marzocchi Bomber Z2 rail fork. So this is OE package. It was on a sale at Jensen USA. I think my shipping information is on this slip inside of here. So I'm gonna hide that from you assholes on the internet. With the Marzocchi Bomber Z2 rail unboxing. We got a bunch of paper. Oh, here it comes. Here's the good stuff. Wow. That looks a lot more substantial than the forks that were on this thing, I would say. I've never had a tapered steer tube fork before, so we're gonna have to see how that goes. That's interesting. Yeah, this thing looks solid. I like how the graphics are gray. It's kind of like low key. And then man, it's got this big, this is a Thru-Axle, so it's got this big like chunky thing holding the wheel in there. Wow. There's a whole bunch of words in here. We're gonna have to figure out how long I gotta cut this fork to make it fit the bike. Alright guys, so the next step for installing this fork is we gotta figure out how long do we need to cut the steer tube, because forks ship with a whole extra length of tube on the steering tube, but then you have to cut it down to size, so we need to determine the cut length. And so the procedure, I'm looking at the Google AI. So it says install the crown race. Make sure the crown race, the part of the headset that sits at the base of the steer tube, is fully seated on the new fork. And so my crown race is this guy. So this thing needs to go all the way down on the new fork. I've made sure that the flat part, there's going to be a flat part on the bottom. Right? So that's all the way down. And then this crown race has a little kind of gap in it. I don't know. That's just how it is. And then so the next step is that we're going to do a dry fit assembly where we insert the new uncut, so that's my new fork right here. We're going to stick this into the bike's head tube and then slide all the components down onto the steer tube in the order they will be installed. So that is, so I've got the two bearings inside of my headset already. So I got the bearing in the top and the bearing in the bottom. And then I've got the crown race right here. So then now I can put this up through here. Right, so it seems like everything's interfacing right here properly at the bottom with the crown race. So then now at the top I can kind of, we're just doing a dry fit. So I can push that bearing down in where it should be. And then there's this little spacer thing that it seems like it must go in there and kind of press down in there and get compressed. And then here is the top of the headset, which is going to go on here like this. It seems like it has a little rubber thing on there to keep dust out or something. Okay, and then I'm gonna dry fit the bars and get those, and then get this going on here. What was that? Just dropped something. I don't know what that was. But so then you want to make sure that everything is like pressed all the way up in there at the bottom, right? And so everything is like compressed how it would be when you kind of install everything. So then at this point, I want to find something sharp and then kind of scratch kind of a little bit of a line onto this. So I'm gonna get, and then so the idea is that we kind of dry fit everything, how it's gonna be. And then so now we know where we gotta cut it. We're not gonna cut it on exactly that line that I just scribed, but we're gonna base our cut based on that line. So let's get our bars and get these kind of back hanging here. Alright guys, so now that I've marked where the top of my stack is, that's what we call your stack. It's kind of like everything that goes on top of your steer tube. So like your spacers, your stem, and then the top, like, so that's your stack. And so we've established that it goes up to about here, this line currently, with how the bike was originally configured. So I want to build some flexibility into this fork for the future, for if I want to like get a different stem, or if the stack height, like if I buy a different stem and then the height of my stem changes or something, I want this fork to be like compatible in the future if I want to change things slightly. So I might add like a 5mm spacer or something. So this is how I'm gonna do it. So this is kind of my current stack line right here, and then here's a 10mm spacer. So I'm gonna make a new scratch mark on here that will fit. I should have just put this 10mm spacer on top of here before I made this scratch mark, but alright, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but my existing scratch mark is right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add this 10mm spacer on here for a little bit of extra length, and then I'm going to hold this in place, and there we go. Alright guys, we're out in the garage. There's this little tool like this, and it's like you can put a fork into it and then you can saw it, and this little like notch right there, there's like a little notch there, you can put a hacksaw and saw it. So then I've got a hacksaw. It says it's a 12-inch, and here's what it is. So it's a 12-inch hacksaw blade. It's got 32 TPI, and it's bimetal. And then we're gonna give it a cut. Alright, so we chopped that bubby. Now we gotta get this thing out of there, so let's get this piece going back on here. And then loosen this guy up so we can get the fork out of there. There we go. Chopped her clean. Alright guys, the next step is we gotta get a star nut going into the fork. Oh my goodness, I found it. Yeah, so this is what we need, because if you goof up getting the star nut in there, like, oh man, it'll just be a headache. Okay, so now we smash that down like that, the star nut should be set in there. There we go. Man, that thing really went down in there, didn't it? Wow. Alright, so now let's get everything going back onto this. So we're getting the bars onto, we're getting everything onto the bike. This is the installation right here. So I've got the bearing right here that's going to go up in there, and then we're going to have some spacers. Then we've got this top headset thing we got to put on there. And then so when we get to the top of our stack, you should have like a couple millimeters where the steer tube is down inside of your spacer. So that's why I subtracted a few millimeters on my actual cut. I'm gonna compress the star nut just so that it's holding on, just so it's holding everything on here. I'm going to get this brake caliper mounted back onto the fork down here. Hopefully I can just use the same adapters and everything. And I guess you just take this whole thing, and this whole thing unscrews like this. Isn't that crazy? Wow. So I figured it out. So that's how you get that out. Okay guys, so since I bought this fork, and this fork is it's like a boost sized fork, I had to buy a boost sized wheel. To where I bought this wheel. It was on Amazon from Jeff Bezos. It has these little protectors on each side. Oh, and then we're just gonna quickly verify that this thing is the correct spacing, which it appears to be. Alright guys, so I'm just getting the rotor going onto my new wheel. We got the tire on this bub. Alright, here we go. I'm gonna get that little spacer out of my brake caliper that I put in there earlier. So that feels much more substantial. That feels like a much more substantial way of securing your front wheel to the bike, doesn't it, guys? I like this. I can figure out, is that gonna fit on here? Or what's going on with that? Let's see. Alright guys, so we got the Marzocchi Bomber fork on here. We got the new wheel on here. I transferred my rotor and my tire and everything onto this new wheel. We've got it in the new fork. Front brakes are working again. The Mudmobile has a new fork. The Marzocchi Bomber Z2 rail. So now I gotta make sure that the pressure and everything seems right. And there's an owner's guide that I'm probably not gonna read right now. I'm just gonna take this thing out and ride it and see what happens. I'm just gonna take it outside, and like if it feels like it's set up reasonably well, I'm just gonna go for a ride with it. And we'll set it up later because we gotta get going. So that was the fork install video. I'll maybe do a video later about like dialing in the fork or whatever once I've got some experience with that. But for now, that's the install. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm gonna go try it out ASAP. Peace out, bubs. I'll see you next time. E-Bike Builder channel.